Hello, and today I'd like to do another interesting video on how exercise is beneficial from an aging standpoint. We talked a lot about it in the last video, and I just wanted to add a little bit more in terms of the emotional benefits of exercise. And we know that depression increases the risk of dementia, and as we age, we get less estrogen for women and less testosterone for men, and that can actually create an elevated level in cortisol, which causes damage in the hippocampus. So that's how depression can, of course, create memory problems and erode your cognitive function. And so dementia risk goes up as well, because that's one of the areas that malfunctions and gets damaged in dementia. And as depression risk increases as we get older, because we get less dopamine, etc., our risk for dementia actually increases as well. And being lonely increases the risk for Alzheimer's. In fact, it doubles it. And you're more likely to be lonely as we get older, because depression hits as well and we lose motivation to do things, apathy, lose interest in life, etc. And that's why it's important to stay in touch with people and connect, because that can literally reduce the risk of Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. Dopamine also goes down, which can lead, as I mentioned, dopamine goes down. That actually what can lead to depression, as well as reduced motivation and apathy. So you reduce interest in the world. Exercise can help, obviously, with the depression piece by raising dopamine, and of course can improve physical, mental, and emotional well-being by elevating your mood, lowering stress and anxiety, and helping you structure your day, making you feel more accomplished and looking forward to new opportunities. Because when you exercise, you want to push yourself, you want to get better and better, and you set goals and you're committed to improve. This helps prevent atrophy in the hippocampus. It allows you to connect with other people because you're social when you exercise, and you prevent loneliness, which doubles the risk for Alzheimer's. So if you prevent loneliness, you can literally slash your risk by 50%, which is pretty good. So exercise helps you stay social, connect with other people, and prevent the atrophy in the hippocampus, because if you exercise, you raise levels of dopamine, you reduce depression, you improve your mood, and as we know, depression is not good, because when you're depressed, you get higher cortisol levels, and that can cause erosion in the hippocampus. So exercise is great to reduce depression, reduce your loneliness, stay connected with others, and reduce dementia and Alzheimer's. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention. Now let's talk about all the benefits that exercise have on your brain. Well, first of all, it strengthens your cardiovascular system, and this reduces your blood pressure, makes VEGF and FGF, which both help make endothelial cells, and this can prevent blockages in the brain and can counteract vascular damage that can cause stroke. It also helps you make nitric oxide, which regulates blood volume and reduces stiffness in the arteries, again preventing stroke and Alzheimer's. The second benefit is that it regulates fuel, again via IGF-1, and this helps regulate insulin levels to prevent high blood glucose. And a 9-year study showed that high blood glucose can literally increase your Alzheimer risk by 77%. That's crazy. And high blood glucose can damage blood vessels and cause stroke via free radicals and inflammation, as well as damage neurons, which can lead to Alzheimer's, again because of this cellular stress. And exercise helps regulate insulin levels via IGF-1, and that helps prevent this high glucose accumulation. Thirdly, it reduces obesity by burning calories, of course, obviously, and also by reducing cravings. And why is obesity bad? Well, because it's important, because obesity doubles the risk for dementia, and 73% of Americans over 65 are overweight. And this risk not only doubles, but it increases sixfold if you also consider high blood pressure and high cholesterol, which are both risk factors for dementia, right? We saw that like high levels of cholesterol can actually increase the risk for dementia by like 40 something percent. And so if you add high blood pressure and high cholesterol, which are both risk factors of obesity, your risk for dementia doesn't only double but increases sixfold. That's crazy. So reducing obesity is definitely a benefit of exercise. Fourth point is that exercise reduces the stress threshold. As I mentioned, cellular stress, there's three types: oxidative, metabolic, and excitatory. So oxidative comes from free radical accumulation. Metabolic comes, for example, through high blood glucose and through not having enough energy to meet your metabolic demands. And excitatory comes from high levels of glutamate and information overload in the brain and not enough GABA to kind of put a stop onto it. So exercise can help all three of these. And in fact, you can even make proteins to fix that damage of this stress, because as we get older, we can't fix the damage and we reduce our stress threshold. But exercise helps maintain that threshold so we can clear these damaged proteins, and we actually make proteins that fix damaged proteins and fix this cellular damage that occurs and even cellular death. So exercise is very beneficial to prevent cellular death and apoptosis, which of course can cause neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, because that's what they're caused. They're caused by a loss of cells, a loss of neurons. Put simply, Alzheimer's is due to cellular loss in various areas of the brain, like the frontal cortex, temporal cortex, and the hippocampus. And exercise can shield against it by reducing cellular stress and inflammation, which is a risk factor for Alzheimer's. Fifth point is that exercise lifts your mood by making dopamine, obviously, and as we age, we get less dopamine, and so by exercising, you raise dopamine levels. You prevent the atrophy that depression and anxiety can cause on the hippocampus, because as I mentioned, depression can cause erosion in the hippocampus by elevating cortisol, as anxiety can do as well, and exercise can reduce both depression and anxiety, as we've seen in previous videos. Depression increases the risk for dementia, and a good mood reduces this risk. And of course, when we exercise, we also make friends and we stay connected, which is crucial considering that loneliness doubles the risk for Alzheimer's. So you slash the risk by 50% by staying connected with other people when you exercise, and you improve your mood and reduce the risks of depression, which of course is a risk factor for dementia as well. Sixth factor is that exercise boosts your immune system. It improves immunity by making antibodies and improving your adaptive immune response, as well as cell-mediated immune response. It increases the T cell count, and T cells are very important to prevent cancer. And I think I did a couple of videos about how sleep also can activate T cells and why deep sleep is very important for T cell production. Well, exercise does that too, and so that's why you have to focus on your basics: getting good sleep, getting exercise. Exercise activates T cells, and that prevents cancer. In fact, those that are physically active have 50% less of colon cancer. I think I mentioned those stats about exercise and its benefits on cancer reduction. So being physically active is important that way as well. And the immune system is also important to clear inflammation, because what happens as we age, our immune system weakens, and that's why inflammation goes up, because we can't fix that damage. And as noted by inflammatory markers like C-reactive proteins, those C-reactive proteins go up as we age, because that's an indication that we have more inflammation, because our immune system goes down. Well, exercise helps counteract that by reducing inflammation, and so you have lower levels of C-reactive proteins as you age. So exercise boosts our immune system and prevents this inflammation from taking place. Seventh point is that exercise strengthens your bones. And even though strong bones do not have anything to do with the brain per se, we saw the importance of the body and brain connection. And weak bones increase your risk for hip fracture. And as we saw, when you lose your mobility by breaking your hip, your mental health will follow suit, and your sharpness and mental agility will also follow. So what happens when women reach the age of 30, they lose 1% of their bone mass each year until they reach menopause. So by the time that they're 60, if you do the math, 1% body mass every year, you lose 30% of your body mass by the age of 60, right? You lose 30%. And things like weight training, calcium, and vitamin D can help, as well as running and jumping sports. So although aerobic is great for all the previous benefits, such as improving your cardiovascular strength, strengthening your heart, regulating your fuel, helping glucose get into the cell to prevent high glucose accumulation in the blood, reducing obesity, reducing that, or raising the stress threshold to prevent cellular stress and apoptosis, improving your mood by raising dopamine levels, boosting your immune system. If you want to strengthen your bones, unfortunately, walking and doing cardio doesn't help so as much. You have to do more like weight training and weight lifting to get the benefits of reducing osteoporosis and reducing hip fractures, as well as taking calcium and vitamin D, as well as sports that involve more running and jumping. So walking is great for all of the above, and I recommend walking daily, but specifically for this one point, strengthening your bones, you may want to add something in addition to just having a walk routine. You may want to do some weight training a couple times a day as well. As well as, so the 8th point about the benefits of exercise is boosting your motivation, because higher dopamine is generated when you exercise, and of course you push yourself to improve and you set your goals and you feel accomplished when you meet those goals, and so you're more motivated, and has to do with the increase in dopamine, right? And also by raising your dopamine in areas of the basal ganglia, by forming more connections there, you also prevent Parkinson's. You prevent this motor kind of deterioration and issues with tremors that are a hallmark of Parkinson's disease as well. And then the last point is exercise fosters neuroplasticity. You form new synaptic connections, but you also form new brain cells in the hippocampus, neurogenesis, right? You also guard against neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, and you help create neurotropic factors like VEGF, FGF2, right, fibroblast growth factor, and IGF-1 that all help with it. And these neurotropic factors do all the magic, from regulating blood glucose levels to promoting synaptic connections in various areas of the brain, to reducing depression, to reducing anxiety and high levels of stress via reducing the negative effects of cortisol, as well as literally forming new neurons in the hippocampus, so via stem cell division. So they do all the magic, okay? So clearly exercise has a lot of benefits. And exercise benefits the brain, as we saw, by reducing brain inflammation and plaque formation, and boosting neurotropic factors for neurogenesis, and all of these prevent Alzheimer's, and you create more dopamine connections in the brain ganglia and the basal ganglia to prevent Parkinson's, which, as you know, Parkinson affects 1% of the population over 65, which may not be so much, but knowing that Parkinson's is a risk factor for dementia, for Alzheimer's, it's very important, considering that around 4.5 million Americans currently are suffering from Alzheimer's, and that number is expected to triple to like 13 million people in maybe in a couple of decades. So it's very important to circumvent that. And population support studies in Finland involving 1,500 people tracked in the early 1970s for 21 years. So they did that from the early 1970s to the early 1990s. They showed that exercising twice a week reduced dementia risk by 50%. So just simply exercising definitely can slash the risk of dementia by 50%. And that makes sense because all of these factors that we saw, it reduces obesity, which is which doubles the risk for dementia. It has so much other benefits, from benefiting your cardiovascular system to regulating blood glucose. So, of course, exercise helps, and the author suggests the following for older people above 65. He suggests aerobic exercise 4 days a week, and varying that from 30 minutes to an hour at 60 to 65% of your maximum heart rate, and twice a week doing more intense pace. So this can be walking at a more intense pace of 70 to 75% your max heart rate. So 4 days a week doing it for 60 to 65, and the other 2 days a week challenging yourself a bit higher, at a higher intensity. And then twice a week doing some strength training, where you do 10 to 15 reps per set and doing around 3 to 5 sets. I personally like another technique called super slow training, where you just do, instead of doing 3 to 5 sets, you just do 1 set. You also can do around 10 reps, but you just do 1 set to failure. So you do you do weights with which you go to failure, which you can't do anymore. So essentially, you do 10 reps or as much reps as you go to failure. And super slow involves literally, when you're doing like a certain exercise, you're doing it very slowly, like for literally 15 to 30 seconds. You raise a weight and go down. So you're doing it super slowly to failure. And that actually has been shown to give you even more strength benefits than just regular strength training, where you do 10 to 15 reps for 3 to 5 sets for various exercises, right? For example, your arms, your legs, etc. But super slow has even additional benefits. So that's important. So the aerobic part is great to get the cardiovascular benefits, to get pretty much all the benefits that I mentioned previously, except the bone and muscle strength. For that, you need strength training. Yes. If you want to slash that risk, remember, women lose a percent of bone mass from the age of 30. If you want to slash that risk, hip fractures are literally like a huge percentage of women die within a year if they broke their hip after the age of 65. So clearly you want to prevent osteoporosis and loss of muscle strength, like sarcopenia. It's just so important. I can't stress that enough. Walking alone is not enough, I know, but you want to do weightlifting as well, even if you're over 65. Women in the 90s can even benefit, as shown in a lot of studies. So it doesn't matter your age. Strength training, of course, you can vary your weight, right? So strength training is important. And then the last thing is balance and flexibility training, around twice a week for around 30 minutes each or so, maybe even up to an hour. And yes, this can be yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, or even balancing on a balance board or bozo or something like that. So again, you want to walk or do some aerobic 4 days a week, every day, and maybe 2 days a week at a more high intensity pace. This can be walking, swimming, anything that's aerobic. You want to do strength training twice a week, right? And then you want to do balance and flexibility twice a week as well. Something like yoga or anything that challenges your balance and flexibility. Okay, so maybe something that challenges your balance and flexibility as well twice a week. And as I mentioned, running and jumping, by the way, is also beneficial to improving your strength as well. So you can do those as well as part of your strength training workout, going for a run or for a jog, right? So that's from an exercise standpoint. We saw all the benefits. Also, you want to keep learning and training your brain. A study showed that African American women that volunteered teaching grade school reading had a 50% reduction in cane use, 44% of them felt stronger, and 4% less TV watching. Why? Because when you're keeping your brain mentally active by volunteering, you're actually, your body, you become healthier as well. And they also became more sociable, of course, because they taught grade school reading. And we know that the more social you are, the longer you live, right? You slash your Alzheimer risk by 50%. And nuns who challenged their minds via puzzles, vocabulary quizzes, and public issue debates scored in the 90th percentile on cognitive functions until they died. And that shows that even though Sister Bernadette died of Alzheimer's and had poor genetics, she had the APOE4 gene, which is present in 40% of the population of Alzheimer's. She did well mentally because other brain areas were recruited. So this gives hope because our brains are flexible and plastic. And this plays a huge role. Not only our genes play a huge role, but also our lifestyle factors. If keeping your brain mentally active, whether it's volunteering, whether it's doing crossword puzzles for elderly people, or whether it's keeping your brain active by reading, you actually can slash that risk, but you actually can reduce cognitive decline as you age. And the APO4 gene is not everything. Yes, the APOE4 gene increases your risk for Alzheimer's, but look, 30% of healthy individuals have that gene and they don't have Alzheimer's. Just 40% have that gene and have Alzheimer's, but as you saw, you can reduce cognitive decline by keeping your brain mentally active. And it's not a surprise that Alzheimer risk is reduced 17% each year that you have post-high school education. And so clearly, being more educated and keeping your brain mentally active does reduce the risk for Alzheimer's and dementia. So keep learning and training your brain. Lifelong learning is important. And then the last thing I want to talk about, of course, is your diet. And Mark Mattson showed the benefits of caloric restriction. And rats eating 30% less calories lived 40% longer. Similar results were shown in monkeys. But this is not for everyone, especially if you have a lower weight or etc. If you're working out and if you need to build muscle, and we know how elderly women lose bone mass, that may not be for them because they need to have the protein, right? So it depends for who. Now we saw also, but what you can do is you can eat healthier. And we saw that there's toxins that keep pests away, but at low level have a beneficial effect. Kale, for example, has sulforaphane, which is a hormetic toxin, but has beneficial effects. Other things like garlic, onion, broccoli, and even cumin all play a beneficial role by having those toxins at small levels, but they're present at low levels, but they give you beneficial effects. Also, free radical fighting foods, things that have antioxidants like blueberries, pomegranate seeds, spinach, beets, etc. Antioxidant foods like green tea and red wine and grapes, which have resveratrol, right? And even things like whole grains and protein that increase your tryptophan levels, because we know that tryptophan raises serotonin, and that can reduce the risk for depression, right? And improve your mood. As well as omega-3. This one's huge. Omega-3 and eating fish once a week literally reduces your yearly rate of cognitive decline by 10%. So it reduces your cognitive decline by 10% every year. That's crazy stats, just by adding fish to your diet once a week. Fish also reduces your risk for bipolar, and omega-3 also reduces mood conditions and even ADHD. That's interesting. And people taking fish oil can literally reduce their dementia risk by 50%. So we saw exercise can reduce your risk of dementia by 50%. Well, guess what? Eating fish oil with every meal, so taking fish oil on a daily basis, can do the same. So there's many things you can do to reduce dementia risk by 50%. And even being connected with people, because loneliness increases the risk of Alzheimer's by 50%. So staying lonely, so staying connected to not be lonely, exercising, and remembering to take your omega-3 are all extremely important, as well as obviously keep staying mentally active is also really important, because that helps prevent cognitive decline as well. Other things in terms of a diet standpoint is vitamin D is important for bone strength, along with calcium for women to prevent osteoporosis. And as I mentioned, weight training is also very important for that, as well as things like jumping and running. And then of course vitamin B, especially folate, which improves memory and processing speed. So folate is vitamin B9. I suggest that just take a vitamin B complex, which gives you all the vitamin Bs at the right amounts. Also great from a cognitive standpoint. So a lot of things that you can do, but these are like the 3 pillars, and they include having a good diet, exercise, and lifelong learning. keeping your brain mentally active until old age.